Hey guys, Happy New Year. Now, ever since Daniel Tosh's show got interrupted by that moron, the same idiots have been trying to justify why they feel the need to dictate to everybody else what is funny and what is not. It seems to not get into these people's brains that comedy is decided by whether people laugh at it or not, instead of what somebody else decides that comedy should and shouldn't be. No matter how bad the said comedy's content is, whether it's children with cancer or a certain tragedy. Comedy is decided based on how people react to it. Often comedy is linked to tragedy, as laughter is a great healing and a great method for dealing with the tragedy. Now, the recent rape isn't funny statement from someone pretending to be morally superior to everybody else comes from a very cute girl called Phoxy Ladies. However, her cuteness does not excuse her from having a black feminist heart of coal. When comedian Philip DeFranco, and I'm putting comedian in air quotes here because I think Phil is about as funny as watching grass grow, makes a comment about drunk anal sex and TSA agents, Phoxy is compelled by her superiority to everybody else to educate him and his followers about the finer points of cultural Marxism. She equates a woman under the influence of alcohol to a 5-year-old unable to make any coherent decision and in need of constant supervision by an adult, to which Phil replies that if that's true, he's been raped many times. Now, there are a few things I want to say about the situation. Number one is that there are different levels of being intoxicated. Certainly if someone is passed out on a pavement and someone else drags them to the bushes and has their way with them, it would be rape by any standard. However, cutting all the bullshit, we know exactly what this girl is talking about. The vagueness in her statements to label exactly how intoxicated someone is to be when rape is considered allows her to back away from the statement should people call her a complete idiot, or to push for as much control over men to the point where should a woman have a sip of alcohol, go home with a guy and choose to cry rape, she can get away with it. Throughout the whole video, she doesn't take into consideration that the guy at the same exact time can be just as intoxicated, if not more so, than the girl. I'll be the first to admit that I had gone home with women and wanted to chew my arm off the next morning. I felt dirty, ashamed, and still do when I look back on those moments, but I have taken responsibility for my own actions for having too much alcohol rather than calling the police on these women who dragged me to their place. And that's the other thing that really pisses me off. Her whole argument assumes that women, and only women, belong to some special class that doesn't have to take responsibility for anything unless they grant us the pleasure of doing so. That when it suits them, women can belong to a class of brain-dead weaklings that need to have every decision made for them and be completely taken care of. Now, if you choose to put yourself in this retarded class of women, Missy, I say go for it. I take it a step further and issue you with a chaperone every time you go out, just so you don't need to make the wrong decision. Hell, maybe even won't let you out of the house without a sober adult following you. However, just because you have some mental issues does not mean that there are women out there that want to have fun, get drunk, and have sex with people, and when they wake up the next morning next to a guy they probably don't like that much, they can take responsibility and go home to a cold shower. Isn't the whole feminism thing supposed to be about women being strong adults who are capable of making their own choices just as much as men are? If there is no physical force on the part of the man to get the woman to their place, or to be invited into hers, what in your mind makes intoxication of the man being insignificant to you and still putting all the power with him? Towards the end of the video, she tells a lovely story about a paranoid woman trembling while trying to open the door to her house. Again, if you have a mental illness where you have a paranoia of being raped at your doorstep, when statistically the likelihood of that is incredibly small, where most rapes occur in households by people you know, and when men are more likely than women to be victims of physical violence. If you have this illogical phobia, I suggest you get some counseling, rather than make the world conform to your mental illness and making everyone else who listens to you just as paranoid. I suffer from agoraphobia, and actually did look over my shoulder and rush to get my key in the door when I was coming home at night, but I didn't start projecting my insecurities into the rest of the world. I took responsibility for my problems and started to work on them until I was able to let go of my paranoia, and yet for some reason, if you're a girl, it seems like that paranoia can be justified and in fact encouraged as something normal. I love how Phoxy's like, I really like you, Phil, if only you conform to my politically correct dogma. Well, I have an alternative solution for men out there who might like a woman. Bring up that you watch Tosh.0, and if you don't, then watch it because it's a great show. And then bring up the whole incident about that moron interrupting it. If a woman says anything but that woman must have been one of those retarded drunk 5-year-olds that didn't know what she was doing and got what she deserved, get up and get the fuck away from her. I find it interesting that Phil's original statement was made together with a reference to TSA agents who are now legally allowed to grope and molest all the women they want, and who stem from the same paranoia that Phoxy is so set on giving to the rest of the world. Let's work together this year to stop cultural Marxism and these constant attacks on men. Thank you for listening.